Rock and roll, number 6 of most influential albums. I used to... My mum and dad downstairs in the living room had about that many records, which I, over the years, used to steal bits from. I used to borrow them. So the first thing was my dad told me he had all the Stones albums, all the Stones songs, everything the Stones ever did when I was happier. Really? But like Paint It Black, because that was my first awakening for music, was like watching a Vietnam, sort of American Vietnam TV, what's the word I'm looking for? TV series type thing, sort of like Platoon. I think it was called Tour of Duty, it wasn't called Call of Duty. Tour of Duty, and it started with Paint It Black. I thought that song was absolutely amazing. I remember seeing, I think it was my mum watching Top of the Pops 2 or whatever the equivalent of Sounds of the 60s, whatever it was, and it had the Stones playing Paint It Black, and I could not believe that it was the Stones that did a song as cool as that, and it was black and white, so it was so old. It's like, how can music that's so old be absolutely the best music you can get? You know, it's like 65 or 66 or whatever it is. And so over the years I used to steal records, and amazingly, even though they only had that many, it's a number of times I went down and found something interesting. And one time I was reading Q magazine, and it was Brian Wilson talking about his favourite albums of all time, and it was like, that one, I'm sure I've seen that downstairs, because it never made any sense to me. I never understand why would there be like a guy like Bach, why would he have like this big telephone exchange thing? Like it doesn't fit. That's obviously part of the thing. So this is Walter Carlos, who's now Wendy Carlos, switched on Bach. It is amazing. It's classical music, but it's classical music done on what I now know as a Moog modular. And the thing about it is, a lot of it is Bach. I don't think it's all Bach. Maybe this one's all Bach, but it's like, because Bach's like, it's almost like mathematical, the music. Like you've got like the three parts that go together. But when you play it on the instruments that would have been played for in the, God knows when, 1700s, 1600s, hundreds of years ago, back in the old days, if you use like a violin and a cello and a oboe, they don't sound that different to each other, so you don't quite get the separation between it. Whereas on the Moog, Walter Carlos chose very different sounds for each instrument, so they're all completely different. And I think actually, the good thing with some of these records is they've got like that amount of reading on the back to read while you're listening to it, and it's like he actually, the Moog synthesizer, which it was, he was working with Robert Moog, I believe it's meant to be pronounced, but in the UK we always say Moog. So it was kind of being built while this album was being made. Like there was things that Walter wanted that it didn't do yet, to try and get, like, you know, I think it was all recorded one note at a time and try to get a sound out of this sort of thing. You know, it's just all patch based and stuff. It's not like a synthesizer now. You don't just press 1 and get one sound and press 2 and get another. It's all, you have to carve it out of it's additive synthesis, not subtractive synthesis to start with, which is just, it's confusing. But the sound of this is just immense. I was a wee bit put off the first time I listened to it. I listened to the one I recognised, which was Air in a G string. You know, the one from the Hamlet advert. That shows you how old I am. You know, you know the song, and it's the only one on this that isn't rocking. When I say rocking, it's just like it's just whoa, pedal to the metal all the time. I put this on a CD and ended up buying the other one. There's a Switched On Bach 2. There's the Well Tempered Synthesizer. There's maybe 4 or 5 records from this era, none of which came out on CD, or they might have come out on CD since, and they're not on YouTube. You can't get any of this music. It's all copyright closed off. So really the only way you're going to hear this is if you can find the actual record. This one came out on CD, the first one, and I remember finding it in a classical music shop in Glasgow, which I don't imagine is there anymore, and they would have to order it in. It was 40 quid for the CD. Right, so I didn't bother. And I actually talked to, I don't know if you know Mark Doughty. I went through a mad synthesizer phase a few years ago. He does review demos of synthesizers, and he was talking about Switched On Bach, and I mentioned that. It's like there's so many amazing Switched On Bach or Walter Carlos stuff that you just can't get in CD. And apparently he said he bought a box set on CD, which was only out for like a year, and it's pretty rare. So there is a box set that apparently it's got an awful lot more of more than just the first album on it. But I mean, yes, it is classical music. But I mean, I used to listen to this driving. I was working in Pitlochry for a year. I used to listen to this really loud, going up the motorway, and, you know, an hour and a half drive every morning and every way home, just be a it was amazing. So switched on Bach. It's maybe a little bit. It's like classical music for people who don't like classical music, I think. I believe actually at the time it was the best-selling classical album of all time. So there should be lots of copies of this kicking about. I've actually got another copy, I think it's the American one, which is basically, it's exactly the same apart from the guy sitting over here or something. You know, it's a different shot from the same photo shoot. Also I'm using there's a stuffed cat in the back as well. So, switched on Bach. Get switched on, man. It's a rocking thing.